Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. On the show yesterday, the chairman of the Alliance for New Nigeria confirmed the coalition of his party with Young Progressives Party to present a consensus candidate between Fela Dorotoye and Kingsley Moghalu for the presidential election. The chairman also said the two parties are open to form a partnership with other political parties. Joining us now is presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Omoyele Sowore, to speak on whether or not he's open to a coalition and several other matters. Welcome to the morning show.
Thank you for bringing me. Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So yesterday we had the chairman, Emmanuel Dania, of the Alliance for New Nigeria, and he mentioned he talked about a coalition. Yes. And I know that you've also mentioned that it will take a true partnership and progressive commitment of patriots to move Nigeria forward, yes, and that you're committed to a coalition. Talk to us about that.
To be honest with you, we already have. Our party is a coalition of the oppressed, of the abandoned, unemployed, of the poor, and downtrodden. So what we're looking for is more partnership and enlargement of our platform to accommodate more of the people out there who want their voices to be heard, who want to chart a new path and course for themselves and this country, Nigeria. So we always invite others to join us, but in this case, they haven't reached out to us yet. We understand that we don't have time on our hands, and we're just 17 days to the election.
Right.
And we have been campaigning. Maybe that's the reason why there's a little bit of difference. Some of these parties are not out there. We're out there, just came back from Bauchi, Gombe, went to the Yankari Game Reserve, I went to Jos. So we really haven't had time to be sitting around holding too many meetings. We are meeting with Nigerian people who are going to vote on February 16, 2019.
So we aren't quite sure how this coalition would form or how it would work. Do you have an idea?
That's why I don't know, because I was not part of those meetings. There was a coalition before called PACT, and Fela Dorotoye won. Kingsley disagreed with him. Now, I don't know how this is going to produce a single, but I would assume that they figured out how that will work. What I'm saying is that our focus at this point is winning the election. And as we go along, we hope more and more people will join us in making sure that this old order is finally retired and discarded.
All right, you just said that they haven't asked you yet. If they reach out to you, will you consider joining the coalition? If
it's going to produce the kind of result I would think will make Nigeria a better country. We are not just going to be part of a coalition for the sake of creating another coalition. There are several coalitions already in the horizon. PDP has about 45 parties in a coalition they call COP. I call them COP of Sorrow. The other party, APC, they have their own coalition. There are coalitions all over the place, and I don't just want to chip in the quality of our own party, our programs, by just joining a coalition for the sake of joining a coalition, because people already know us and know what we stand for. We cannot afford to pollute or dilute what we stand for. We must have some kind of genetic similarity with others who want to form coalition with us. For example, we can't compromise on the issue of minimum wage. You heard the Speaker of the House say yesterday that 30,000 is grossly inadequate. Now, for the first time. But before now, they used to ridicule us when we say minimum wage of 100,000 is a starting point for a living wage. The Speaker of the House is saying yesterday, he's using the word even living wage, which has been a mantra for a while. So we can't just join coalition of people who don't understand us, who don't stand for the same things we stand for. It has to be very clear what they're joining us for. And we cannot compromise on who is going to lead the way, because this is a fight for the liberation of Nigeria. And when you're looking to go to a fight, you have to get your best fighters, experienced fighters to go in to lead.
All right, so you would only join the coalition if there was a clear-cut definition of who would lead, and that will be you, I suppose, your party.
Oh, no, our position is very clear. We have a presidential candidate, and we know how we're doing out there. There's empirical evidence that apart from maybe the PDP and the APC, AAC is the party that is doing the best and had the biggest reach, the diversity that is needed to lead this country to that path that we have defined clearly: progress, peace, and development. Any other party that's coming to join us cannot be a party that's just sitting down in a corner. It's not going to be a party that is based online alone. It has to be a party based offline and online, and has the reach and the appeal that we think is important for us to defeat. We have two behemoths to defeat. You cannot put ahead of you a weak footing at this point. That's very important. And that's what we're saying, that you must look at who is popular out there, who has appeal, who can galvanize youth, women, who can galvanize the weak and the poor, who are willing to change the objective conditions. Anything short of this will be a big disappointment to our supporters and others who are looking up to us to deliver Nigeria this time. Yes.
And we suppose the answer to all of those questions would be you. But there are a lot of people who say that, these new generational parties or these newcomers into politics at this moment cannot make the difference. Our last guest, Professor Maman Tahir, did allude to that, to say you cannot, change the status quo just now, perhaps in the long run, but you're confident that you're here to change the status quo. What gives you that confidence?
The status quo is already changing. I mean, how we've been able to drive this conversation around very important issues, minimum wage, the issue of health care in the country, the issue of agriculture, education, everything. We've been able to change the narrative around it. In fact, the ruling party are there stealing even our ideas. I listened to the professor you were mentioning. They don't want the old system to change because that's how they benefit from. They benefit from that system. And what we're saying here is that it's up to young people in Nigeria, old people in Nigeria, Nigerians in general who are suffering to say, look, enough is enough. Nobody's going to wait for another 4 years of this, with due respect nonsense to continue. And we're just here sitting and saying it will change. They thought that nothing will happen in Cuba in 1959. Revolution happened the night after, even in France. So it's not up to the oppressor to determine when the oppressed free themselves. It's the oppressed that will choose a date, and they will keep a date with history. That's what we're saying. A lot has already changed, and they know it. That is why they are all afraid and shaking and, sponsoring all this propaganda out there that you can't change the status quo. What is the meaning of the status quo? The status quo is a system that is dilapidated and disappointing. And that has to change. They have no right to determine when that will change. We have the right to determine when we want to be free. And I think February 16 is one of the dates. And there will be several dates in a series of events that will hit this country in a matter of weeks.
All right. So at the candidates' town hall meeting
Yes.
last Wednesday,
Yeah.
you made a pledge that you'd cut the jumbo pay of the National Assembly
Yes.
members if elected into office.
Yeah.
And that your government will pay 100,000
Naira
naira
minimum
as
wage.
minimum wage.
Yeah.
How can you guarantee this?
We can guarantee that because there are rules and laws governing how much everybody gets paid in terms of remuneration. There's a body constitutionally empowered to do that. And our research with them, I think the revenue mobilization body in the country, is that an average lawmaker is not supposed to get paid more than about ₦1 million. So they are breaching the laws of the land by paying themselves 14 million naira per month. And what you discover is that an average Nigerian worker, even if they were to be paid 30,000 naira per month, it would take them 38 years to make what a lawmaker is making in a month. That's unfair, that's unjust, and that's unacceptable. So we're saying that this country cannot continue to be at the mercy of these greedy individuals, whether they're lawmakers or wherever they may be, that we must bring them under the law. And we'll bring them in with the law. That's what it says. The thing about minimum wage is that, we know the number of workers and how much can take a worker from the first day of the month to the end. It takes, if you are feeding on 1,000 naira, it will take you 30,000 naira to feed in a month. That's just feeding. If you have to rent a house, 20,000, that's already 50,000. If you have to pay school fees for your children in a household, we're already talking about 70,000. If you have to if you had any medical issue at all, it takes you not less than 10,000 naira. If you're nobody. And how can you then be paying somebody 30,000 naira and you expect them to perform optimally at work? And beyond that, you don't expect them to be corrupt. So it's also a way of solving the corruption problem. It's about propping up the lifestyle of workers. And most importantly, it will kickstart and jumpstart the economy. Because I don't know what economists think about when they think that you can pay somebody huge jumbo salaries on one end and you pay the others who are supposed to be supportive nothing, and you expect the economy to work. People who get paid the lowest salaries or wages in Nigeria are the ones who actually spend money in the country. The people who get paid jumbo salaries, the moment they make their money, convert it to dollars, and they're out of the country the next day. It benefits people outside, but people who get paid, salaries of a living wage, just spend it here, and it promotes, it helps the economy very well. That's why I tell people that I'm a better economist than these World Bank economists who are roaming the streets all over the place, lying about quality of life.
That's easy to say, and then we're hoping that these are not just bogus promises. Because the question is and should be, how do you intend to fund, source, and even sustain this 100,000 minimum wage that you talk about?
The question you should ask me is, how much will it cost for us to pay our workers 100,000? You'll be surprised. So it would take the wage bill to by about 1.3 trillion naira, 1.5 trillion naira, and that is small compared to how much they steal in this country. They steal $5 billion every month through corruption. Let's assume that we're able to plug half of that. We already have $2.5 billion. Dollars to spend on workers. And when you invest in workers, you're investing in everybody pretty much, because they send their children to school, they will buy from people who are, subsistence farmers. They will invest in, small and medium scale industries, and the economy will be job started. But don't forget that this is just not pumping money into the economy. It's going to happen in addition to improving electricity, which we want to increase it from 3,000 megawatts to 24,000 megawatts in the country. It has to do with building infrastructure. It has to do with additional 5 million jobs that will create through agriculture, through solar energy provision, in addition to add to our electrical grid. It would have something to do with security in the country. It will have something to do with health, education, agriculture, and tourism. So that's what we call Spicer Heat. Things are going to be happening a lot. As I always say, Nigeria will become a construction site, so everybody will be busy.
How have you come up with this figure, this 5 billion?
We have some really, really sound teams working with us, and they, nobody has. Yesterday, the Speaker of the House is now speaking our language. That's Yakubu Dogara. He's saying, and that was the headline this morning, that 30,000 naira is not enough for an average Nigerian worker. They are now coming to terms with the reality of what we've been talking about for 9 months. But the question you should also ask yourself is, where do we get the money to service our greedy people? Oil subsidy scam alone took over $6-point-something billion from this country. Nobody is complaining about that. All these legislators that we're talking about who don't even show up for work, they take from us over 1-point-something trillion naira. And they don't do anything for us than just a burden.
That there's a need to uplift a lot of Nigerians from poverty.
Yes. And you can't get them out of poverty by paying their slave wages.
Great. So what's your take on the trader money scheme?
That's bribery of voters.
Why do you say so? I mean, this
is
money
not
given to them to
institutionalized. I know Professor Oshibajo very well. When I was a student activist, he used to be in the NGO community. Well respected. I'm ashamed to be associated with this trader money initiative. And I hope that I heard a very good Christian who asked for forgiveness from God for doing this to our people. That is not only, uncalled for, it's wrong, but it's also very debasing to be going around hawking 10,000 naira to traders because elections are coming. That's not how to empower people. There are institutionalized ways of social security that this could have been done, but they're not interested. And that's why we are different, and that's why we don't spend too much time discussing these old, antiquated people and their way of thinking. What we always say here openly is that our problem is not their age as much as it's the age of the ideas. The ideas are not, they should have no accommodation in any decent society. To be hawking 10,000 naira.
So INEC continues to raise alarm over plans by political parties and political actors to undermine the conduct of this election and...
Who is raising alarm?
INEC.
Oh, okay.
And to rig the process. What do you think should be done with this alarms being raised by the electoral umpire? I mean, it's just 17 days to the election.
I've said this in, that the job of INEC is to rig the election for the ruling party. So it's interesting that they are raising an alarm. We have always said that there are problems with the way they are organizing the election, and the rules and guidelines that's been released are not transparent enough to guarantee free and fair elections. And that's why when I was asked the candidates last week if I will accept the outcome of the election, I made it very clear that if the elections are free and fair, there's no way we can lose. Except nobody in their right senses can vote for PDP or APC in the next election. That's the truth. And if everybody is going with that mindset, then we would win. So what INEC is saying is that they are not sure they can guarantee free and fair election. It's a cop-out. You know, they're not supposed to be the ones raising the alarm. They're supposed to be the ones staying ahead of people who are planning to rig the election. And if INEC is already sounding helpless, then you can imagine the outcome of the election. My feeling is that going by some of the events that happened the last few days, these elections have somehow systematically been rigged, and they're just looking for how to get Nigerian people to accept the outcome, and that will not happen. In fact, this might trigger a series of reactions that will lead to, you know, an after-election revolutionary process in this country. So I'm advising them to be really careful, not to continue to take Nigeria.
Are you by chance referring to the CJN issue?
Yes, with that and several other issues. It's not just the CJN issue, but there are several things happening to show that even the president, I think President Buhari said it in one of his campaigns, that somehow they remotely control the Australian elections, how they use resources, the remote resources. You know, when the president is given a microphone without his minders, sometimes he says the truth, you know, from whenever he's conscious enough. So, and that's what he's telling you, that they have plans, you know. I mean, what they did in Osun and Ekiti is a pointer to what they would do, you know, buying voters and what they call see and buy. You know, we've talked about this. And INEC did nothing about it, because these are criminal conducts that INEC also have charged people to court for doing those things. But INEC never did anything about this. No single indication out there that they try to take people to court over what they did in Ekiti and in Osun State. Shows that INEC is not as serious as they want us to believe. But they're just saying that, oh, in case the elections are not free, we've been crying that, you know, it may not happen, and that's not acceptable.
Well, in order to realize your dream of setting up Sahara Reporters, you received a grant from Ford Foundation. How do you intend to replicate this gesture in such a way that you can give back to the youth?
No, so what I need to correct is that it wasn't a grant that started Sahara Reporters. I started Sahara Reporters with a laptop. It was my own money. You know, I started Sahara Reporters in 2005, December. It started operating in 2006. Ford Foundation did not give me a grant until 2009. So it was my own initiative. Ford Foundation gave me a grant after.
But you did receive funding?
Yes, absolutely,
You know,
yes.
so.
I'm just trying to correct that. Okay. That it wasn't a civic, it was propelled by a grant. It was my grand idea, first and foremost. But
I did refer to it as your dream, so.
Yes, it's true. So with regards to that, you know, for Sahara Reporters, it's not the first time I committed my life and even put my life on the line. You know, we've done bigger things. And it started from the University of Lagos here in Akoka, where we were part of the movement that drove the military out of power through peaceful protests across the country for over 10 years, between 1989 and 99. So I've always been giving back to the youth, and the youth have also been giving back to me, because the University of Lagos, I was saved by young people when I was attacked physically and almost killed. So it's a situation of reciprocity. I'm not better than the young people out there who have led, and, you know, in a way we've always been working together. But this is not a charitable conversation now. This is a life and death situation that young people in this country must come together and put an end to the misery that's been visited upon us in the last 58 years. It's not a charitable conversation. It's not a matter of, you know, philanthropy. It's a matter of philosophy.
You've been a champion of the youth movement.
Yes.
What programs or what policies do you have for human capacity development?
Education is one major one, and we have plans to invest massively in education. It's not a rhetorical conversation, because even Bill Gates came to this country and said, look, if you don't invest in your people, educating them, you will miss out of the knowledge economy that is coming. The World Bank also came out recently and admitted that the economic policies that had been forcing Nigeria to go a certain direction had failed. Is the reason why we keep warning Nigeria, don't vote for all these World Bank economists who are always talking numbers, the PowerPoint economists. They have nothing to offer you. They will only take you back to the structural adjustment program of poverty and misery. So, but in our own case, when you finish sending people to school, you must provide them opportunities to get a job. And when they get a job, give them a living wage. And you have an economy that is running seamlessly. That is how it works everywhere in the world. And they notice that sometimes it's as simple as that. So for young people, we're going to invest in education. We're going to make sure that it's free, and qualitative, and support you when you're in school, so that we can make sure that this country is on a path of progress in a way that it's never been before. I've been asked before, oh, what product do you want to sell next? Is it cocoa? And I said, no, look, the future is going to rely almost solely on knowledge economy, where information is going to not only going to be, power, it's going to be life, and it's going to be very, very lucrative. And that's where we should prepare ourselves for it. And, you cannot dedicate someone to get a bachelor's degree, and then when they're ready to get a job, you give them trader money, or you buy them keke napep. That is like almost criminal leadership. Okay.
Yeah. I have two quick questions for you. You wanted to be part of the presidential debates organized by the NEDG and the BON so badly that you took them to court when you were not part of that. Eventually, you were still not a part of it.
Yes.
And we saw the two major parties in the country being absent. I want to ask you, would you still have attended if they were absent? That's one. So let me take you to a viral video recently of a woman accusing you of selective activism, withholding evidence of true picture of governance as regards the rights of the girl child in Lagos State. Yes. Tell us what happened. Where are the videos she's requesting for?
Yeah. Your first question is
the debate.
I would have participated, because I've been engaging in debate since I started. I've debated almost everybody except those ones I hide in, the PDP candidate and the APC candidate. I've debated all the young candidates at on different platforms and at different fora. And so there's nothing new about it. But going by the way the debate went, I would say that I didn't miss anything. Even on that day that we weren't at the debate, we were the ones trending on Twitter, because everybody was asking for Sowore.
Because you were protesting. Your supporters were protesting outside of the venue.
It wasn't the protest. It was because people were saying that if I was there, it would have been more interesting. Apparently, brand new ideas would have come on stage. And one thing I would have done, if I'd seen Atiku there, I would have protested his departure from the venue. I would have said, okay, you have to debate us. Probably that's one thing that would have changed. I wouldn't have been shaking hands and grinning with him. I would have tried to see if I could make him participate in the debate. But that's a conversation for another day. Regarding a woman, it's just falsehood. Everybody knows how I operate, and I said it on national TV. They're trying the Chief Justice of Nigeria. That reporters brought the same information out. So I've dealt with bigger revelations about people in power. So the woman in question wanted me to, and I revealed the screenshots. She reached out to me on Facebook. She wanted me to promote her NGO. That's all. And I sent it to our Lagos people. I was in New York at that time. In fact, at that time, I was pursuing a bigger case, which was the bribery carried out by Obani Koro in the Kitty Gate. So, and that one was even more life-threatening than anybody else. I cannot abandon children. I fought for children who were ejected by Lagos State government, Otodobame. I did a story about Makoko near the University of Lagos. When I was at the University of Lagos, I was almost killed because I was fighting courts who were engaging in rapes and intimidation and harassment and killing of students. So there was nothing else. In the first place, just to correct, there was no tape passed on to me. That was forced. She has also changed her position on that. You know,
when did she change her position?
Oh, she has now admitted that she never gave me a tape because there was none. Because the moment I released the evidence, I only had one contact with her on Facebook. And now she said that, oh, I never gave him a tape. She said that we came to cover it and didn't give her the tapes.
Well, you should have asked her to do that publicly, just as she accused
No, she has
you
said that
publicly.
publicly. Look, I cannot, look, I have to be careful. I occupy a sensitive position. If I make a pronouncement, I have followers. I don't want them to start going after people. And they say, oh, Sowore ask people to go out. So I have to be careful. And this is a female.
So are you going to give her the tapes?
There's no tapes.
But you sent your crew to cover.
No, the crew went, there was nothing there. It was just that she was giving rice to some kids, maybe 10 kids somewhere, like just most NGOs did. And the crew members, according to them, I never saw it.
She was extremely passionate in that video.
You can be passionate about the lie. It doesn't mean anything. You know, you can tell a lie about this happened in 2015, by the way. You know, and if the way she was passionate, I wish, honestly, she did the thing she did against me for the children, using Facebook as well, or using other media platforms. It would have been lovely. So there's nothing there. What I'm trying to tell you is that being passionate in lying against an innocent person doesn't mean that you're right. You know, people take advantage of political situations. And, you know, that's what happened in this case. There's nothing to it. There's no tape passed on. I've released the evidence of my conversation with her. There was nothing beyond that conversation that somebody should follow her. They followed her. They determined, because we use citizen report. In fact, in my conversation with her, I said to her, like, we use citizen reports. That means you can report this to us directly. But in case you want somebody to follow, they followed her. They determined that it was a promotional video. She was looking for promotion by media for her work, which happens to all of us in the media. You can imagine that you accuse CNN. She even said that Al Jazeera was contacted and never came. She contacted, according to her, Senator Dino Melaye. They never helped her. These are people who could have even used a senator for that matter. But they're not after them. They're after me because they see me as a threat to the institutions out there. So, like I said, there is nothing to it, and she has changed her story. I'm not interested in going after her. People sue me all the time. People attack me.
Let's
People
move
try to kill me for what I do.
on back now to the presidential debate,
Yes.
where someone who actually participated now, Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, and performed, you know, are judged to have had a very good performance at that debate. Yes. Recently, just last week, withdrew from the presidential race. How did you receive that? Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't surprise me. You know, there are a number of people who went into the presidential race that I thought had no business. And Doctor, with due respect to her, she has a right to run for presidency of Nigeria. She's supremely qualified.
Okay.
But having done part as an umpire, I didn't think it was, you know, the natural order to go and become a president, because she already helped Nigerians to, according to her, choose somebody that they thought was competent to represent the pact coalition. So I wasn't surprised. And then she took some steps also. Visiting Babangida, for me, is like off. I even openly condemn that. You know, like, you want to take Nigeria in a different path. You had no business with these old guys. But I think what happened was that her party sold out on her, and she knew it in advance. And to save herself the embarrassment, she pulled out of the race. If she didn't pull out the day she pulled out, they probably would have just, you know, endorsed Buhari while she's campaigning, and that would have been a disaster.
Or was that what you were expecting to happen?
Oh, most of these parties, that's why we had to go set up our own party. A lot of these parties are transactional political parties. You know, they're hawking their wares to whichever presidential candidate they want to buy. That's why you have several of these coalitions. They have no...
And the AAC isn't a transactional party?
No, it is not. There's ample evidence to show that we are solid, and we're on ground, and we're all over the place. Within 5 months, you know, we've entered public consciousness in ways that you've probably never seen before in recent history of Nigeria.
All right, so we have a question from our viewer, from one of our viewers, and Let's see if that's going to come up. It says, this is from Olakunle Customers. RICV kindly ask Omoyele Sowore why he always talks without an iota of respect to the leaders and the people around him. A good leader should not evoke fear like he does. What's his response about the video he was alleged to have given out for money?
Oh, I addressed the issue of the video already.
Yeah,
it's not true. It's false.
What about the issue of respect?
Respect for elders. I respect elders. I'm friends with the likes of Femi Falana. I was friends with Chinua Achebe before he passed on. I have a lot of elders I have a lot of respect for. But with due respect to so many of these elders, they put us in the condition that we're in today. You can't have it both ways. You cannot sell young people down the river and have them turn around to come and be bowing to you when you have, the concept of eldership is something that don't have anything to do with age as much as it has to do with responsibility. There's even a Yoruba adage that, when there are elders in the market, the head of a child should not be looping over. So if the elders don't do what they should be doing, they won't earn the respect that they deserve. So they have a place in society. A lot of elders put us in the condition we are in today. I cannot, in good conscience, go to an elder that destroyed my country, my future. And I mentioned that, you can never see me in Babangida's house. I can't forgive him for what he did to democracy in 1993. You can't see me in Obasanjo's house because of the chances that he blew, or traditional rulers who stood up right in front of us and said that it was okay to annul June 12 election and, destroy Nigeria in what could have, if we continue with democracy since 1993, we'll be in a better place today, in my view, than we are today. We'll have learned the ropes better than we do. You're not talking about the economic destruction wrought on people. You're not talking about the diseases, the conditions that we have our roads today due to corruption of elders. And the elders are having a field day, and they're looking for respect, but they didn't work for respect. So in my view, respect begets respect.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the morning show. And it's just 17 more days for the election.
Absolutely.
We wish you good luck.
And
Not
you
sure
have
if to see you.
brand new president on the 17th. That will be the president-elect.
Okay.
Of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Omoyele Sowore.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifeanyi will join us to review some of the top stories on today's newspapers. Do stay with us.